So, let us begin with the three techniques. A overview. First, the 4D grammar mapping. Grammar is a stage and not a chart. So, first question. What is it even? It is a spatial temporal model for understanding grammar through scenes, actions, and perspectives. It treats grammar not as a list of rules, but as part of a living mental theater where tense, aspect, mood, and voice play out across time. But why does it work? Well, it taps into our brain strength in visual and narrative reasoning by placing grammar in a mental space. Learners, aka us, intuitively understand relationships between actions, when they happen, how long they last, how real or imagined they are, and who is involved. So, let's look at how it works. And this goes for every language, by the way. Grammar is mapped onto a 5-scene structure, Act 1 to Act 5, obviously inspired by theatre or film. The Act 1 is the past. So, that is the past that happened long before other time. Act 2 is the normal past. Act 3 is the present. And here, a little side note. We are at the climax, which is the middle of Act 3. This represents the right now part. And then we have Act 4, which is the future. And Act 5 is the far future. So, that being said, each scene becomes a stage where grammatical forms unfold. For example, the present perfect. Something from scene 2, again, that is the past one, echoing in scene 3. This is the present form. But we also can have the passive void. Here, we have the spotlight on the receiver and not the actor. You can see it as a point of view from the object or the receiver. We also have additional dimensions, such as the aspect, which would be duration versus completion. Then we have the mood, for example, real, hypothetical, imperative. Then we have the voice, which is active or passive as a focus. But of course, in Attic Creek, for example, we also have the dual, which also could be included here. And lastly, we have the syntax. This is the structure and sequencing of action. Now, as for a unique feature, this one is more than just a timeline. It is a cognitive simulation. Grammar becomes something you see, feel, and move through. Make it ideal for story-based learning, which generally is the best kind of learning, gaming, or even virtual reality. And yes, I already have plans for that, but this will take quite a bit of time. But most importantly, this system can be applied universally, which means to every given language, if there is enough information available, which unfortunately does not apply to every ancient language, as an example. Next we have the grammar blueprint or abstract grammar. I couldn't decide which one sounds better, so I have both. Every language is built from templates. So again, what is it? This is a universal skeleton system for sentence construction. It reduces grammar to reusable, abstract templates that can be applied across multiple languages, regardless of whether they are analytic, acclamative, or inflected. why does it work then? You see, instead of memorizing every grammar rule for every language, learners, again, that would be us, internalize, form functional relationships. This allows us to plug in words, modify structure, and grasp grammar structurally and not just lexically. Let's look at how it works. Each sentence is broken down into functional slots. For example, we have the subject, which is in the nominative, plus a verb, which is in this case in the present tense, plus an object, which is in this case the accusative. This is one example of a simple sentence. And then we could also have something like a topic marker plus an adjective plus a copula, which is very often to be. Also, an agent plus a passive verb plus an instrumental phrase. Don't worry, we will get to this in a moment. So, these templates adapt to flexive languages, like for example Latin, Attic Greek, Russian, simply by matching endings. If you have read my Latin paper, where I break down how Latin verbs are built, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it also works for non-flexive languages, for example Japanese or Chinese, simply by filling particles and fixed word order. So, over time, learners build a library of templates covering statements, questions, commands, tenses, aspects, moods, and even conditional and complex clauses. Also here we have something unique. You see, this system as well can be universally applied because it creates a scalable infrastructure for learning multiple languages through shared abstract logic, while still allowing culture and language-specific variation. And the last of the three basic techniques, language comparison, cognate morphological bridge. Basically, if you know English, you already know Latin, Italian, Spanish, and much more. You may just don't know that you already know. Now, to clarify, that goes for other languages as well. Because when you have a good understanding of one language, you also have a good ground for other related languages as well. Be it through language family, for example the Roman languages, such as Italian, Spanish, and so on, or from heavy borrowings in the past, for example English. English is quite a unique language in this regard, because English has quite a, let's say, interesting history, which allows us to use the English language as a ground for many other languages. And it is one of the main reasons why I choose English as the example language throughout this little paper. Anyway, let's start with what it is. It is a comparative vocabulary technique that leverages etymology and morphology to rapidly connect related languages, especially within the same family. Basically, we are utilizing the similarities of related languages, for example, in terms of similar grammatical structures, be it syntax or a flexive case system. So, again, taking English as the example here, let's look at why it works. You see, English is round about 56% Latinate, meaning it has quite a lot of Roman-influenced vocabulary, yet it is still a Germanic language though. As I said, English is rather unique in this case. So, that means that the speakers already know thousands of words that correspond directly to vocabulary in Latin, Italian, Spanish, French, and other languages. With, well, minor, sometimes a little more and sometimes a little bit less adjustment is required. But still, minor changes only in spelling or pronunciation. And this creates a ready-made scaffold. Let's look at how it works. So, I'm pretty sure, as an English speaker, you know words that end in chin, which is T-I-O-N. In Italian, the exact same word ends with sione and in Latin with tio. For example, nation, nazione, and natio. And this is not any coincidence. Quite the opposite. This is a rule. Every English noun that ends in shin ends in Italian with sione and in Latin with tio. We even can look at different languages here as well. For example, the English step and French étape. Here we have a simple switch from the initial s in step to e. Then we can even look to German, where we have Vater. In English it is Father, and in Latin it is Pater. So, and this technique is further enhanced with multilingual polyangulation. So, we are comparing English, a Germanic language, with pretty heavy borrowings in the past. A Romance language, for example, Italian or Spanish, and Latin, using their shared roots and forms to kinda uncover patterns and even predict new vocabulary. Now, also here we have something unique. Instead of rude vocabulary memorization, I'm absolutely against vocabulary memorization. You build a cognitive detection system, so to speak. One that grows exponentially with every new word recognized across languages. It also helps to detect other similar patterns across different languages. And this might be the most important aspect of this particular technique. And that is a psychological bonus. Because not only are you gaining momentum by almost immediately getting thousands of new words, you also get motivated to keep going. Thus, you have a much higher chance in not giving up, which kinda is important if you want to acquire a language. And here is just a summary table with the core traits. Pause if you want to